by the people, for the people.
Well, hey, what's up, man? Welcome to my third documentary as I look at kind of Adolf Hitler and Winston Churchill. And I have to tell you, before YouTube, before I started doing this, if you were to ask me about World War II, what I would tell you is it was the Americans and the British basically saving the world from the evils of the Nazis and the Japanese. That those were the two monsters that were committing all kinds of atrocities against the world. And it was us, the Americans and the British, that saved the world, right? And then lo and behold, I start learning about Russia. I start learning about the sacrifice that the Russian people made. You know, because what I was taught was 6 million Jews died, which is true. 6 million Jews died. I wasn't really taught that 30 million Russians died. That's a lot of Russians. That's a lot of dead Ruskies. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of opened my mind to start looking at, like, World War II and what was going on here, and watching old World War II movies and reading more about World War II. And I stumbled onto something that I had no idea about. And I would call this the forgotten Holocaust. There was an atrocity that was done to my brothers and sisters in India. There was a huge atrocity. It was genocide, I think, on a global scale. And it is the evil no one really wants to talk about. We see movies like Dunkirk, which was a great movie. We see the other one with Gary Oldman in it. I forgot the name of it, where he was playing Churchill. And it's celebrating Churchill as this, you know, larger-than-life character who was able to bring, you know, all of the UK together so they could stand and make a stand and help fight the Nazis.
When will the lesson be learned? When will the lesson be learned? How many more dictators must be wooed, appeased, good God, given him mixed privileges, before we learn? You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth!
Well, what we don't know is that Churchill was a monster. That Churchill was an evil man who did a lot of evil things. It kind of gets pushed aside in the Western media. We don't talk about this. That this despot, what he did to India and the Indian people, it's just never talked about. So I want to take the rest of the time that we have on this video and kind of explore this, because I don't think a lot of Americans realize just how evil the British were and what has happened to our Indian friends, our Indian brothers and sisters. A lot of evil. And so join me with this as we take a little time and we kind of explore the topic. Thank you so much, and we'll get into it. I think before we actually look at the atrocities that were perpetrated on the Indian population underneath Churchill's rule, I think it's probably good to kind of just look at Churchill. I mean, we're not going to spend really any time looking at Hitler, because everybody already knows that Hitler was bad, that he was evil. No, you know, only the most racist girl on YouTube, if you guys have seen her, thinks Hitler was like a great guy and that he never did anything to the Jews. It's all a conspiracy.
The media and school system has told you all your life that Adolf Hitler was the most evil man to ever live. Unfortunately, you were told lies and you most likely believed them. What we hear about Hitler through the media and the school system is extremely biased because they don't want to offend the Jews.
But a lot of people don't know about Churchill. And this documentary really isn't... I know I called it Churchill versus Hitler, but what it is really it's Churchill. And so what I want to do is I want to read to you an article that I found. It was written in the UK, and it was about the two Winston Churchills. We kind of get this, you know, the finest hour, the speeches, the quotes, the hero of Great Britain. We will fight him in the day, and we will fight him there, and we will fight him here.
So bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour.
But we don't get the dark side of Churchill. Oh, trust me, my Indian brothers and sisters get the dark side of Churchill. They know it firsthand, but the world doesn't really know that. So what I want to do is read to you this article that I came across on Churchill. Winston Churchill is rightly remembered for leading Britain through her finest hour. But what if we also learn that he led the country through its most shameful hour? What if, in addition to rousing a nation to save the world from Nazis, he fought for a raw white supremacy, a concentration camp network of his own? This question burns through Richard Toye's new history, Churchill's Empire, and it's even seeping into the Oval Office. George W. Bush left a bust of Churchill near his desk in the White House in an attempt to associate himself with the war leader's historic stand against fascism. Barack Obama had it returned to Britain. It's not hard to guess why. His Kenya grandfather was imprisoned without trial for 2 years and tortured on Churchill's watch for resisting Churchill's empire. Can these clashing Churchills be reconciled? Do we live at the same time in the world that he helped saved and the world he helped to trash? Toye, one of Britain's smartest young historians, has tried to pick through some of these questions dispassionately. And he should lead us, at least, to a more mature conversation about the greatest national icon of Britain. Churchill was born in 1874 into Britain that was washing the map pink. At the cost of washing distant nations blood red, Victoria had just been crowned Empress of India, and the scramble for Africa was only a few years away. At Harrow School and then Sandhurst, he was told a simple story. The superior white man was conquering the primitive, dark-skinned natives and bringing them the benefits of civilization. As soon as he could, Churchill charged off to take part in a lot of jolly little wars against barbarous people. In the Swat Valley, now part of Pakistan, he experienced, fleetingly, a crack of doubt. He realized that the local population was fighting back because of the presence of British troops in the land, and the local people considered their own just as Britain would if she were invaded. But Churchill soon suppressed his thought, deciding instead that were merely deranged jihadists whose violence was explained by a strong aboriginal propensity to kill. He gladly took part in raids that laid waste to the whole valleys, destroying homes, burning crops. Then he sped off to help reconquer the Sudan, where he bragged that he personally shot at least 3 savages. The young Churchill charged through imperial ranks, defending them each time in turn. When concentration camps were built in South Africa for white Boers, he said that they pronounced the minimum of suffering. The death toll was almost 28,000, with at least 115,000 black Africans were likewise swept into British camps, where 14,000 died. He wrote of his irritation that Kafirs should be allowed to fire on white men. Later he boasted of his experience there. That was before war degenerated. It was great fun galloping about. Then as an MP he demanded a rolling program for more conquests. Based on his belief that the Aryan stock is bound to triumph, there seemed to have been an old cognitive dissident in his view of the natives. In some of his primitive, private correspondence, he appeared to really believe they are helpless children who are willingly, naturally, gratefully including themselves with the golden circle of the ancient crown. But when they defied this script, Churchill demanded that they be crushed with extreme force. As colonial secretary in the 1920s, he unleashed a notorious black and tan thugs on Ireland Catholics, civilians, and when the Kurds rebelled against British rule, He said, "I am strongly in favor of using poisonous gas against uncivilized tribes. It would likely spread the terror." Of course, it is easy to dismiss any criticism of these actions. Didn't anybody think that way then? One of the most striking findings of Toy's research is that they really didn't at that time. Churchill was seen as the most brutal and brutish end of the British imperialist spectrum. Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin was warned by the cabinet of colleagues not to appoint him because his views were so antediluvian. Even his startled doctor, Lord Moran, said of the other races, "Winston thinks only of the color of their skin." Many of his colleagues thought Churchill was driven by a deep loathing of democracy for anyone other than the British in a tiny clique of supposed superior races. It was clear in his attitude in India when Mahatma Gandhi launched his campaign of peaceful resistance. Churchill raged that he ought to be laid bound in hand and foot at the gates of Delhi and then trampled on by an enormous elephant with a new viceroy seated on its back. As the resistance swelled, he announced, "I hate Indians. They are a beastly people with a beastly religion." This hatred killed. To give just one major example, the 1943 famine that broke out in Bengal caused, as the Nobel Prize-winning economist Amartya Sen has proven, by the imperial policies of the British. Up to 3 million people starved to death while the British officials begged Churchill to direct food supplies to the region. He bluntly refused. He raged that it was their own fault for breeding like rabbits. At other times, he said the plague was merely hewing out the population. Skeleth, half-dead people were streaming into the cities, dying on the streets, but Churchill, to the astonishment of his staff, only had jeers for them. This rather undermines the claim that Churchill's imperialism was motivated only by an altruistic desire to elevate the lower races. Obama's grandfather is usually among Churchill's victims, only in one respect. His story has been rescued from the slipstream of history because his grandson ended up being president of the United States. Churchill believed that Kenya's fertile high ground should be preserved for white settlers and approved for the clearing out of local blackmoors. When he saw local Kikus as brutish children, when they rebelled under Churchill's post-war premiumship, some 150,000 of them were forced at gunpoint into detention centers, later dubbed Britain's Gulag by Pulitzer Prize-winning historian Professor Caroline Elkins. She studied the detention camps for 5 years for her remarkable book Britain's Gulag. The British end of the empire in Kenya explains the tactics adopted under Churchill to crush the local drive for independence. Electric shock was widely used, as well as cigarettes and fire, she wrote. The screening teams whipping, shot, burned, mutilated Mau Mau suspects Obama never truly recovered from the torture he endured. Many of Churchill's wounds inflicted have still not healed. You can find them on the front pages any day of the week. He is the man who invented Iraq, locking together 3 conflicting people behind arbitrary borders that have been bleeding ever since. He was the colonial secretary who offered the over-promised land to both the Jews and the Arabs. Although he seems to have privately felt racist contempt for both, he jeered at the Palestinians as a barbaric horde who ate little but camel dung, while he was appalled with the Israelis. Take it for granted that the local population will be cleared out to suit their convenience. True, occasionally Churchill did become queasy about some of the most extreme acts of the empire. He fretted at the slaughter of women and children, the massacre of 1919, Toy tries to present these doubts as evidence of moderation, yet almost never have they led Churchill to change his actions. If you are determined to rule a people by force against their will, you can hardly be surprised when atrocities occur. Rule Britannia would be explorable, can produce cruel Britannia. How much can these two be reconciled? Was Churchill morally opposed to Nazism, masking the fact that he was trying to defend the British Empire from a rival? U.S. civil rights leader Richard B. Moore, quoted by Toy, said, "It is a rare and fortunate coincidence. At the moment, the vital interests of the British Empire conceded with those of great overwhelming majority of mankind, but this too might be soft in praise. If Churchill had only been interested in saving the empire, he could probably have cut a deal with Hitler. No, he had a deeper repugnance for the Nazism than that. He may have been a thug, but he knew a greater thug when he saw one, and we may owe our freedom today in that wrinkle in history." So, there was a little bit of Churchill. I think you think of it this way, maybe. World War II is supposed to be the war to end all wars. And one of the things that is known is, especially in America, is that 6 million Jews died. 6 million Jews, that's a lot of people to kill, right? Atrocity, terrible. And then I come to learn that on the Russian side of World War II, 30 million Russians died. 30 million. That is a lot. 30 million people dead. And then you look at India. And you look at the people who died underneath British occupation in India. You have the Bengal famine. You have the ice torture, where Indians were stripped naked, chained to ice so they got frostbite, and then ripped up, pulled up quickly so it ripped the skin off. The rape, the murder, the execution. And if you go through this imperialistic, fascist, white supremacy view that Churchill had, and you look at the Crown's reign on India the entire time, you're getting to 65 million people. 65 million people. And I don't understand how we can celebrate Churchill and not even bring this up. Nobody would celebrate Adolf Hitler. Well, some crazies would. But it's not lifted up. It's not like, we don't make movies about how great Adolf Hitler was. And I think that this is important. This fact, this thing that happened to my brothers and sisters in India, this evil atrocity, this genocide on a global scale that we've never seen before, that we don't know about, that we don't talk about, at least in the West, is the backdrop of the nation of India. It is the darkness that falls on her history that causes the kings of the East to shine like a diamond. When you go into a jeweler in America and you go and look at a diamond ring, they have it set in black velvet. So the darkness is engulfing everything but the diamond, and it shines, and that is what the Indian people are. They are a diamond shining in the world. One of the things that I've come to love about my Indian friends is how patriotic they are. When we do videos about, the Black Cats, the Indian Commandos, the Air Force, the Navy, all these things, there is a Jahin love that happens, and people get fired up at it. And I truly believe it is because of this past. That the Indians are so patriotic because what they are saying when they cheer for their team in cricket, what they are saying when they watch the Indian Commando videos, what they are saying when they lift up their movies is never again will we allow this to happen. Never again. We cannot forget in the West the atrocities that happen. We cannot embrace Winston Churchill. We can't. We cannot embrace Gandhi. Gandhi almost seemed to enjoy more of this, of having Churchill's ear than freeing his people. We cannot. I truly believe you are the kings of the East written about in the Bible. Some 1900 years ago in the book of Revelation. And what I would say to my young Indian friends, think about it. Think about your past. Think about your present and the future that is to come. Prepare for it. Work hard at a craft or a trade. Get an education if you can't. But learn something, learn a skill that will help you in the new world because you will be ruling it. I think to my young Indian women friends that watch, don't be ashamed to be a mom. Don't be ashamed to be a wife. I'm going to tell you two things that are absolutely true. Behind every great man is a woman who made him that way. And the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Two things that I would just impart on you, to my young crunkettes. India, your time is now. The days of viceroys are over. You're dealing with one of Churchill's last evils that were perpetrated against you, and that is the division of your land. And it's clear when you read about it, he hated Indians and Muslims. He hated Hindus and Muslims. He was hoping you guys would just go at it in civil war and just kill each other. And you're dealing with this now. I'm going to take my hat off here. I think it's important for us just to take a moment in silence. And just remember, 65 million people gave their lives for freedom, resisted. India, the world is yours. I am watching from America, rooting for you. I cannot wait to see the heights that you go. I cannot wait to see the world kind of be taken over by India. Jai Hind, my brothers. I'll catch you guys later.